Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srimad-Bhagavatam, where we are taking an adventure with Srila Prabhupada, especially through his purports, and chapter by chapter, verse by verse, canto by canto, getting our consciousness expanded, assimilating knowledge about the Supreme Absolute Truth, Sri Krishna, and preparing ourselves for the 10th canto of Samambonam, the pastimes of Krishna. In the meantime, we hear about his pastimes as well as incarnations, and we hear something about Krishna also from time to time, especially in the first canto and the third canto. Okay, so here we are. Welcome to all of you out in cyberspace. Let's recite the prayer offered by Sanatana Goswami, Prabhupada, to the Srimad-Bhagavatam. It's called Srimad-Bhagavatam Mahima Stotram. And it goes like this. Sarva Shastra Vipiyusha Sarva Vedaika Sarpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, the precious, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabhu Anidvan Pramita Nitya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Padaya Prema Varshaksharayate Sarvada Sarvaseyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madhika Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Man Nisarana Man Bhagya Man Ananda Namostate. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu Sadhutadayin Adini Chochatakada Hanamunchagada Chimmam Premna Rit Kantayosvura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Okay, here we are, the 5th canto, chapter 1, beginning with text 39. We're continuing to hear the glories of Maharaja Priyavrata, who was a great liberated renunciate under the guidance of Narada Muni. And then when his younger brother, Uttanapad, who was the administrator of the universe, it came time for him to retire. He was called upon by his father, Swayambhuvamanu, and by his grandfather, Lord Brahma, to renounce renunciation, in a sense, and take up the administration of the universe. And he did. And Narada Muni, who was his spiritual master and had encouraged him to renounce, was very happy, because he was doing so in devotional service under the directions of Lord Brahma, who was as representing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So let's hear more about Priyavrata's activities, glories. Text 39. There are many famous verses regarding Maharaj Priyavrata's activities. No one but the Supreme Personality of Godhead could do what Maharaj Priyavrata has done. Maharaj Priyavrata, Hare Krishna, Maharaj Priyavrata dissipated the darkness of night, and with the rims of his great chariot, he excavated 7 oceans. Purport. There are many excellent verses, famous all over the world, concerning the activities of Maharaj Priyavrata. Hare Krishna. He is so celebrated that his activities are compared to those of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes a sincere servant and devotee of the Lord is also called Bhagavan. Sri Narada is called Bhagavan, and Lord Shiva and Vyasadeva are also sometimes called Bhagavan. This designation, Bhagavan, is sometimes conferred upon a pure devotee.
I'm sorry, Maharaj. Sorry,
Rule
Maharaj.
number 1, and that's the last time, that shouldn't happen again. Okay, this designation, Bhagavan, is sometimes conferred upon a pure devotee by the grace of the Lord, so that he will be very highly esteemed. Priyavrata, Maharaj Priyavrata was such a devotee. Text 40. To stop the quarreling among different peoples, Maharaj Priyavrata marked boundaries at rivers and at the edges of mountains and forests, so that no one would trespass upon another's property. Purport. The example set by Maharaj Priyavrata in marking off different states is still followed. As indicated here, different classes of men are destined to live in different areas, and therefore the boundaries of various tracts of land, which are described here as islands, should be defined by different rivers, forests, and hills. This is also mentioned in relation to Maharaj Prithu, who was born from the dead body of his father by the manipulation of great sages. Maharaj Prithu's father was very sinful, and therefore a black man called Nishada was first born from his dead body. The Nishada race was given a place in the forest, because by nature they are thieves and rogues. As animals are given places in various forests and hills, men who are like animals are also destined to live there. One cannot be promoted to civilized life unless one comes to Krishna consciousness. For by nature, one is destined to live in a particular situation according to one's karma and association with the modes of nature. If men want to live in harmony and peace, they must take to Krishna consciousness, for they cannot achieve the highest standard while absorbed in the bodily concept of life. Maharaj Priyavrata divided the surface of the globe into different islands, so that each class of men would live peacefully and not clash with the others. The modern idea of nationhood has gradually developed from the divisions made by Maharaj Priyavrata. Text 41. As a great follower and devotee of the sage Narada, Maharaj Priyavrata considered hellish the opulences he had achieved by dint of fruitive activities and mystic power, whether in the lower or heavenly planetary systems or in human society. Purport. Srila Rupa Goswami has said that the position of a devotee is so super excellent that a devotee does not consider any material opulence worth having. There are different types of opulences on earth in the heavenly planets and even in the lower planetary system known as Patala. A devotee, however, knows that they are all material, and consequently he is not at all interested in them. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Param Drishtva Nivartate. Sometimes yogis and jnanis voluntarily give up all material opulences to practice their system of liberation and taste spiritual bliss. However, they frequently fall down because artificial renunciation of material opulences cannot endure. One must have a superior taste in spiritual life. Then he can give up material opulence. Maharaj Priyavrata had already tasted spiritual bliss, and therefore he had no interest in any of the material achievements available in the lower, higher, or middle planetary systems. Thus, and the Bhaktivedanta, I could have finished this chapter yesterday. Thus, and the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 5th canto, 1st chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled The Activities of Maharaj Priyavrata. All right, chapter 2, the activities of Maharaj Agnidra. In this chapter, the character of Maharaj Agnidra is described. When Maharaj Priyavrata went off for spiritual realization, his son Agnidra became the ruler of Jambudvip in accordance with Maharaj Priyavrata's instructions, and maintained its residence with the same affection a father feels for his sons. Once Maharaj Agnidra desired to have a son, and therefore he entered a cave of Mandara mountain to practice austerity. Understanding his desire, Lord Brahma sent a celestial girl named Gurujiti to Agnidra's hermitage. After dressing herself very attractively, she presented herself before him with various feminine movements, and Agnidra was naturally attracted to her. The girl's actions, expressions, smiles, sweet words, and moving eyes were fascinating to him. Agnidra was expert in flattery, thus he attracted the celestial girl, who was pleased to accept him as her husband because of his mellifluous words. She enjoyed royal happiness with Agnidra for many years before returning to her abode in the heavenly planets. In her womb, Agnidra begot 10 sons: Nabi, Kimpurusha, Harivarsha, Ilavrita, Ramyaka, Hiranmaya, Kuru, Bhadrashva, and Ketumala. He gave them 9 islands with names corresponding to theirs. Agnidra, however, his senses unsatisfied, was always thinking of his celestial wife, and therefore in his next life he was born in her celestial planet. After the death of Agnidra, his 9 sons married 9 daughters of Meru, named Meru Devi, Patirupa, Ukridangstri, Lata, Ramya, Shama, Nari, Bhadra, and Devaviti. Text 1. Sri Shukadeva Goswami continued, after his father, Maharaj Priyavrata, departed to follow the path of spiritual life by undergoing austerities. Priyavrata departed to follow the path of spiritual life by undergoing austerities. King Agnidra completely obeyed his order, strictly following the principles of religion. He gave full protection to the inhabitants of Jambudvip as if they were his own begotten sons. Purport. Following the instruction of his father, Maharaj Priyavrata, following the instructions of his father, Maharaj Priyavrata, Maharaj Agnidra ruled the inhabitants of Jambudvip according to religious principles. These principles are exactly contrary to the modern principles of faithlessness. As clearly stated here, the king protected the citizens the way a father protects his begotten children. How he ruled the citizens is also described here. Dharma Bekshamana, strictly according to religious principles. It is the duty of the executive head of the state, to see that the citizens strictly follow religious principles. The Vedic religious principles begin with Varnashram Dharma, the duties of the 4 Varnas and 4 Ashramas. Dharma refers to principles given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The first principle of Dharma, or religion, is to observe the duties of the four orders as enjoined by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. According to people's qualities and activities, society should be divided into Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, and then again into Brahmacharis, Grahastas, Vanaprasthas, and Sannyasis. These are religious principles, and it is the duty of the head of state to see that his citizens strictly follow them. He should not merely act officially. He should be like a father who is always a well-wisher of his sons. Such a father strictly observes whether his sons are performing their duties, and sometimes he also punishes them. Just contrary to the principles mentioned here, the presidents and chief executives of the age of Kali are simply tax collectors who do not care whether religious principles are observed. Indeed, the chief executives of the present day introduce all kinds of sinful activity, including especially illicit sex, intoxication, animal killing, and gambling. These sinful activities are now very prominently manifested in India. Although 100 years ago, these four principles of sinful life were strictly prohibited in the families of India, they have now been introduced into every Indian family. Therefore, they cannot follow religious principles. In contrast to the principles of the kings of old, the modern state is concerned only with propaganda for levying taxes and is no longer responsible for the spiritual welfare of the citizens. The state is now callous to religious principles. Srimad-Bhagavatam predicts that in Kali Yuga, the government will be entrusted with Dasyudharma, which means the occupational duty of rogues and thieves. Modern heads of state are rogues and thieves who plunder the citizens instead of giving them protection. Rogues and thieves plunder without regard for law, but in this age of Kali, as stated in Srimad-Bhagavatam, the lawmakers themselves plunder the citizens. The next prediction to be fulfilled, which is already coming to pass, is that because of the sinful activities of the citizens and the government, rain will become increasingly scarce. Gradually there will be complete drought and no production of food grains. People will be reduced to eating flesh and seeds, and many good spiritually inclined people will have to forsake their homes because they will be too harassed by drought, taxation, and famine. The Krishna consciousness movement is the only hope to save the world from such devastation. It is the most scientific and authorized movement for the actual welfare of the whole human society. Text 2. Desiring to get a perfect son and become an inhabitant of Pitruloka, Maharaja Agnidra once worshipped Lord Brahma, the master of those in charge of material creation. He went to a valley of Mandara Hill, where the damsels of the heavenly planets come down to stroll. There he collected garden flowers and other necessary paraphernalia, and then engaged in severe austerities and worship. Purport. The king became Pitriloka Kama, or desirous of being transferred to the planet named Pitriloka. Pitriloka is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, Yanti Deva Vrata Devan, Pitrin Yanti Prati Vrataha. Bhagavad Gita 9:25. To go to this planet, one needs very good sons who can make offerings. To go to this planet, one needs very good sons who can make offerings to Lord Vishnu and then offer the remnants to their forefathers. The purpose of the Shraddha ceremony is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, so that after pleasing him, one may offer prasad to one's forefathers and in this way make them happy. The inhabitants of Pitriloka are generally men of the karma kandya, or fruitive activities category, who have been transferred there because of their pious activities. They can stay there as long as their descendants offer them Vishnu Prasad. Everyone in heavenly planets, such as Pitri-loka, however, must return to earth after exhausting the effects of his pious acts. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9:21, Chine Punyi Marjalokam Vichanti. Persons who perform pious acts are transferred to higher planets. But when the effects of their pious acts are over, they are again transferred to earth. Since Maharaja Priyavrata was a great devotee, how could he have begotten a son who desired to be transferred to Pitriloka? Lord Krishna says, Pitrinyanti Priyavrata. Persons who desire to go to Pitriloka are transferred there. Similarly, Yantimad Yajino Pimam. Persons who desire to be transferred to the spiritual planets, Vaikuntha Lokas, can also go there. Since Maharaj Agnidra was the son of a Vaishnava, he should have desired to be transferred to the spiritual world, Vaikuntha Loka. Why then did he desire to be transferred to Pitriloka? In answer to this, Goswami Giridhara, one of the Bhagavatam commentators, remarks that Agnidra was born when Maharaj Priyavrata was infatuated by lusty desires. This may be accepted as a fact because sons are begotten with different mentalities according to the time of their conception. According to the Vedic system, therefore, before a child is conceived, the Garbhadhana Sanskara is performed. This ceremony molds the mentality of the father in such a way that when he plants his seed in the womb of his wife, he will beget a child whose mind will be completely saturated with a devotional attitude. At the present moment, however, there are no such Garbhadhana Sanskaras, and therefore people generally have a lusty attitude when they beget children, especially in this age of Kali. There are no Garbhadhana sex ceremonies. Everyone enjoys sex with his wife like a cat or dog. Therefore, according to Shastric injunctions, almost all the people in this age belong to the Shudra category. Of course, although Maharaj Agnidra had a desire to be transferred to Pitriloka, this does not mean that his mentality was that of a Shudra. He was a Kshatriya. Maharaj Agnidra desired to be transferred to Pitriloka, and therefore he needed a wife, because anyone desiring to be transferred to Pitriloka must leave behind a good son to offer yearly pinda or prasad from Lord Vishnu. To have a good son, Maharaja Agnidra wanted a wife from a family of demigods. Therefore he went to Mandara Hill, where the women of the demigods generally come to worship Lord Brahma. In Bhagavad Gita 4:12, it is said, Kankshanta karmanam siddhim yajanta yadevataha. Materialists who want quick results in the material world worship demigods. This is also confirmed in Srimad-Bhagavatam. Sri Aishvarya Prajapsava. Those who desire beautiful wives, substantial wealth, and many sons worship the demigods. But an intelligent devotee, instead of being entangled by the happiness of this material world in the form of a beautiful wife, material opulence, and children, desires to be immediately transferred home, back to Godhead. Thus he worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Text 3. Understanding King Agnidra's desire, the first and most powerful creative being of this universe, Lord Brahma, selected the best of the dancing girls in his assembly, whose name was Purvachati, and sent her to the king. Purport. In this verse, the words Bhagavan Adi Purusha are significant. Bhagavan Adi Purusha is Lord Krishna. Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Lord Krishna is the original person. In Bhagavad Gita, he is also addressed by Arjuna as Purusham Adyam, the original person, and he is called Bhagavan. In this verse, however, we see that Lord Brahma is described as Bhagavan Adi Purusha. The reason he is called Bhagavan is that he fully represents the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is the firstborn creature in this universe. Lord Brahma could understand Maharaja Agnidra's desire because he is as powerful as Lord Vishnu. As Lord Vishnu, situated as Paramatma, can understand the desire of the living entity, so Lord Brahma can also understand the living entity's desire. For Vishnu, as a via medium, informs him. As stated in Srimad-Bhagavatam 1.1.1, Tin he Brahma Vida ya adi kavaye. Lord Vishnu informs Lord Brahma of everything from within his heart. Because Maharaj Agnidra specifically worshipped Lord Brahma was pleased, and he sent Purvachiti, the Apsara, to satisfy him. Text 4. The Apsara sent by Lord Brahma began strolling in a beautiful park near the place where the Lord was meditating and worshipping. The park was beautiful, where the king was. The park was beautiful because of its dense green foliage and golden creepers. There were pairs of varied birds, such as peacocks, and in a lake there were ducks and swans, all vibrating very sweet sounds. Thus the park was magnificently beautiful because of the foliage, the clear water, the lotus flowers, and the sweet singing of various kinds of birds. Text 5. As Purvachiti passed by on the road in a very beautiful style and mood of her own, the pleasing ornaments on her ankles tinkled with her every step. Although Prince Agnidra was controlling his senses, practicing yoga with half-open eyes, he could see her with his lotus-like eyes. And when he heard the sweet tinkling of his bangles, he opened his eyes slightly more and could see that she was just nearby. Purport. It is said that the yogis always think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead within their hearts. Dhyana vastitadgatena manasa pashyanti yam yogina. Bhagavatam 12:13-1. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is always observed by yogis who practice controlling the venomous senses. As recommended in Bhagavad Gita, yogis should practice sampreksha nasikagram, keeping their eyes half open. If the eyes are closed completely, there will be a tendency to sleep. So-called yogis sometimes practice a fashionable form of yoga. The microphone is not connected now. That's what I just got a message. It said the microphone is not connected now. Excuse me, I'm taking notes, having some transcendental communication here through the airwaves. I see it, but all the connections seem to be good. Right? Am I right or wrong? Is there something else we can check? How is it now? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
No.
It's still not working?
I'll go get the other mic.
What?
I'll go get the other mic.
The other mic? Don't you have two mics here?
Yeah.
There's one here.
Don't you have two mics here?
The old ones. Those are new.
No, let's try this. Let's try the other mic first. Maybe that's the one that's hooked up to the thing. Huh?
They both are.
They both are. Is that any better? Hare Krishna. Or maybe it's just her.
It's everyone saying.
Everyone's saying the same thing.
She said it worked.
She said it works now.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to go back and read the first part of this chapter. I'm just going to keep on going. So you guys can read on your own something. Hare Krishna. And that's mysterious. No? No?
Much better.
Okay. Purport. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone. Sorry for the inconvenience. It is said that yogis always think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead within their hearts. Dhyana vastita tadkatena manasa pashantiyam yoginaha. Bhagavatam 12:13:1. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is always observed by yogis who practice controlling the venomous senses. As recommended in Bhagavad Gita, yogis should practice some prekshanasikagram, keeping their eyes half open. That was a thank you. No, you're welcome. But you know what we had to do? We have to monitor this. Somebody should monitor from the beginning, and then if that happens, you'll catch as soon as it catch, and then fewer people will be missing out. Okay. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is always observed by yogis who practice controlling the venomous senses. As recommended in Bhagavad Gita, yogis should practice some preksha nasikagram, keeping their eyes half open. If the eyes are closed completely, there will be a tendency to sleep. So-called yogis practice a fashionable form of yoga by closing their eyes and meditating, but we have actually seen such so-called yogis sleeping and snoring while meditating. This is not the practice of yoga. To actually practice yoga, one should keep his eyes half open and gaze at the tip of his nose. Although Agnidra, the son of Priyavrata, was practicing mystic yoga and trying to control his senses, the tinkling sound of Purvachiti's ankle bells disturbed his practice. Yoga Indriya Samyamya. Actual yoga practice means controlling the senses. One must practice mystic yoga to control the senses. But the sense control of a devotee who fully engages in the service of the Lord with his purified senses, Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam, can never be disturbed. Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati therefore stated, Dan Tendriya Kala Sarpa Pantali Prokhata Dangstrayate. Chaitanya Chandramrita 5. The practice of yoga is undoubtedly good because it controls the senses, which are like venomous serpents. When one engages in devotional service, however, completely employing all the activities of the senses in the service of the Lord, the venomous quality of the senses is completely nullified. It is explained that a serpent is to be feared because of its poisonous fangs. But if those fangs are broken, the serpent, although it seems fearsome, is not at all dangerous. Devotees therefore may see hundreds and thousands of beautiful women with fascinating bodily movements and gestures, but not be allured, whereas such women would make ordinary yogis fall. Even at the advanced yogi, Vishwamitra broke his mystic practice to unite with Menaka and beget a child known as Shakuntala. The practice of mystic yoga, therefore, is not sufficiently strong to control the senses. Another example is Prince Agnidra, whose attention was drawn to the movements of Purvachiti, the Apsara, simply because he heard the tinkling of her ankle bells. In the same way that Vishwamitra Muni was attracted by the tinkling bangles of Menaka, Prince Agnidra, upon hearing the tinkling bangles of Purvachiti, immediately opened his eyes to see her beautiful movements as she walked. The prince was also very handsome. As described herein, his eyes were just like buds of lotus flowers. As he opened his lotus-like eyes, he could immediately see that the Apsara was present by his side. Text 6. Like a honeybee, the Apsara smelled the beautiful and attractive flowers. She could attract the minds and vision of both humans and demigods by her playful movements, her shyness and humility, her glances, the very pleasing sounds that poured from her mouth as she spoke, and the motion of her limbs. By all these qualities, she opened for Cupid, who bears an arrow of flowers, a path of oral reception into the minds of men. When she spoke, nectar seemed to flow from her mouth. As she breathed, the bees, mad for the taste of her breath, tried to hover about her beautiful lotus-like eyes. Disturbed by the bees, she tried to move hastily, but as she raised her feet to walk quickly, her hair, the belt on her hips, and her breasts, which were like water jugs, also moved in a way that made her extremely beautiful and attractive. Indeed, she seemed to be making a path for the entrance of Cupid, who was most powerful. Therefore the prince, completely subdued by seeing her, spoke to her as follows. Purport: how a beautiful woman's movements and gestures, her hair and the structure of her hips, breasts, and other bodily features attract the minds not only of men, but of demigods also, is very finely described in this statement. The words Dibija and Manuja specifically emphasize that the attraction of feminine gestures is powerful everywhere within this material world, both on this planet and in the higher planetary systems. It is said that the standard of living in the higher planetary systems is thousands and thousands of times higher than the standard of living on this planet. Therefore, the beautiful bodily features of the women there are also thousands and thousands of times more attractive than the features of the women on earth. The Creator has constructed women in such a way that their beautiful voices and movements and the beautiful features of their hips, their breasts, and the other parts of their bodies attract the members of the opposite sex, both on earth and on other planets, and awaken their lusty desires. When one is controlled by Cupid, or the beauty of women, he becomes stunned like matter, such as stone. Captivated by the material movements of women, he wants to remain in this material world. Thus one's promotion to the spiritual world is checked simply by seeing the beautiful bodily structure and movements of women. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has therefore warned all devotees to beware of the attraction of beautiful women and materialistic civilization. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu even refused to see Prataparudra Maharaj when he was a very opulent person in the material world. Lord Chaitanya said in this connection, Nishkinchanasya Bhagavat Bhajanon Mukasya. Those who are engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, because they are very serious about going back home, back to Godhead, should be very careful to avoid seeing the beautiful gestures of women, and should also avoid seeing persons who are very rich. Nishkinchanasya Bhagavat Bhajanon Badhasya Kahasya Mukhasya Param Param Jigamashur Babasaugarasya Sagarasya Sandarshanam Vishayanam Atajoshitam Cha Ha Hanta Hanta Vichabhakshanato Pisadu. Alas, for a person who is seriously desiring to cross the material ocean and engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord without material motives, seeing a materialist engaged in sense gratification, or seeing a woman who is similarly interested, is more abominable than drinking poison willingly. One who is serious about going back home, back to Godhead, should not contemplate the attractive features of women and the opulence of rich men. Such contemplation will check one's advancement in spiritual life. Once a devotee is fixed in Krishna consciousness, however, these attractions will not agitate his mind. Text 7. The prince mistakenly addressed the Apsara, "O best of saintly persons." Right. Maybe not mistakenly. "O best of saintly persons, who are you? Why are you on this hill? And what do you want to do? Are you one of the illusory potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? You seem to be carrying 2 bows without strings. What is the reason you carry these bows? Is it for some purpose of your own, or for the sake of a friend? Perhaps you carry them to kill the mad animals in this forest." Purport. While undergoing severe penances in the forest, Agnidra was captivated by the movements of Purvachiti, the girl sent by Lord Brahma. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, "Kamaistaistaya rityajnana." When one becomes lusty, he loses his intelligence. Therefore, Agnidra, having lost his intelligence, could not distinguish whether Purvachiti was male or female. He mistook her for a Muniputra, the son of a saintly person in the forest, and addressed her as Munivarya. Because of her personal beauty, however, he could not believe her to be a boy. He therefore began studying her features. First he saw her 2 eyebrows, which were so expressive that he wondered whether he or she might be Maya, the Maya of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The words used in this connection are Bhagavat Pada Devataya. Devata, the demigods, all belong to this material world, whereas Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is always beyond this material world and is therefore known as Paradevata. The material world is certainly created by Maya, but it is created under the direction of Paradevata, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Maya Dyakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam. Maya is not the ultimate authority for the creation of this material world. Maya acts on behalf of Krishna. Purvachiti's eyebrows were so beautiful that Agnidra compared them to bows without strings. He therefore asked her whether they were to be used for her purposes or for the sake of someone else. Her eyebrows were like bows meant to kill animals in the forest. This material world is like a great forest, and its inhabitants are like forest animals such as deer and tigers meant to be killed. The killers are the eyebrows of beautiful women. Captivated by the beauty of the fair sex, all the men of the world are killed by bows without strings, but cannot see how they are killed by Maya. It is a fact, however, that they are being killed, bhutva praliyate. By dint of his tapasya, Agnidra could understand how Maya acts under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The word pramatan is also significant. Pramata refers to one who cannot control his senses. The entire material world is being exploited by people who are pramata or vimudha. Prahlad Maharaj therefore said, Shocetato vimukha cetasa indriyartha maya sukhaya banam udvahato biburan. They are rotting in the material activities for transient material pleasure and spoiling their lives toiling all day and night simply for sense gratification, with no attachment for love of Godhead. I am simply lamenting for them and devising various plans to deliver them from the clutches of Maya. Bhagavatam 7:9-43. Karmis who act very seriously for sense gratification are always referred to in the Shastras by the terms as pramata, vimukha, and vimudha. They are killed by Maya. However, one who is apramata, a sane, sober person, a dhira, knows very well that a human being's primary duty is to render service to the Supreme Person. Maya is always ready to kill those who are pramata with her invisible bows and arrows. Agnidra questioned Purvachiti about this. Text 8. Then Agnidra observed the glancing eyes of Purvachiti and said, "My dear friend, you have two powerful arrows, namely your glancing eyes. Those arrows have feathers like petals of a lotus flower. Although they have no shafts, they are very beautiful, and they have very sharp, piercing points. They appear very peaceful, and thus it seems that they will not be shot at anyone. You must be loitering in this forest to shoot those arrows at someone, but I can't understand whom. My intelligence is dull, and I cannot combat you. Indeed, no one can equal you in prowess, and therefore I pray that your prowess will be for my good fortune." Purport. Agnidra thus began appreciating Purvachiti's powerful glance upon him. He compared her glancing eyes to very sharp arrows. Although her eyes were as beautiful as lotuses, they were simultaneously like shaftless arrows, and Agnidra was therefore afraid of them. He hoped that her glances upon him would be favorable, because he was already captivated, and the more captivated he became, the more impossible it would be for him to remain without her. Agnidra therefore prayed to Purvachiti that her glances at him would be auspicious, not futile. In other words, he prayed that she would become his wife. Text 9. Seeing the bumblebees following Purvachiti, Maharaja Agnidra said, "My dear Lord, the bumblebees surrounding your body are like disciples surrounding your worshipable self. They are incessantly chanting the mantras of the Samaveda and the Upanishads, thus offering prayers to you. Just as great sages resort to the branches of Vedic literatures, the bumblebees are enjoying the showers of flowers falling from your hair." Text 10. O Brahmana, I can simply hear the tinkling of your ankle bells. Within those bells, tititi birds seem to be chirping among themselves. Although I do not see their forms, I can see how they are chirping. When I look at your beautiful circular hips, I see they are the lovely color of kadamba flowers, and your waist is encircled by a belt of burning cinders. Indeed, you seem to have forgotten to dress yourself. Purport. With lusty desires to see Purvachiti, Agnidra especially gazed upon the Lord's attractive hips and waist. When a man looks upon a woman with such lusty desires, he is captivated by her face, her breasts, and her waist, for a woman first attracts a man to fulfill his sexual desires by the beautiful features of her face, by the beautiful slope of her breasts, and also by her waist. Purvachiti was dressed in fine yellow silk, and therefore her hips looked like kadamba flowers. Because of her belt, her waist seemed to be encircled by burning cinders. She was fully dressed, but Agnidra had become so lusty that he asked, "Why have you become naked?" Text 11. Agnidra then praised Purvachiti's raised breasts. He said, "My dear Brahmana, your waist is very thin, yet with great difficulty you are carefully carrying two horns to which my eyes have become attracted. What is filling those two beautiful horns? You seem to have spread fragrant red powder upon them, powder that is like the rising morning sun. O most beautiful one, fortunate one, O most fortunate one, I beg to inquire, where have you gotten this fragrant powder that is perfuming my ashram, my place of residence?" Purport. Agnidra appreciated Purvachiti's raised breasts. After seeing the girl's breasts, he became almost mad. Nevertheless, he could not recognize whether Purvachiti was a boy or a girl. For as a result of his austerity, he saw no distinction between the two. He therefore addressed her with the word Dvija, O Brahmana. Yet why should a Dvija, a Brahmana boy, have horns on his chest? Because the boy's waist was thin, Agnidra thought he was carrying the horns with great difficulty, and therefore They must be filled with something very valuable. Otherwise, why would he carry them? When a woman's waist is thin and her breasts are full, she looks very attractive. Agnidra, his eyes, attracted, contemplated the heavy breasts on the girl's thin body and imagined how her back must sustain them. Agnidra imagined that her raised breasts were two horns that she had covered with cloth, so that others would not see the valuables within them. Agnidra, however, was anxious to see them. Therefore he requested, please uncover them so that I can see what you are carrying. Rest assured, I shall not take it away. If you feel an inconvenience in removing the covering, I shall help you. I myself can uncover them to see what valuable things those raised horns contain. He was also surprised to see the red dust of perfumed kumkum spread over her breasts. Nevertheless, still considering Purvachiti a boy, Agnidra addressed her as Subhaga, most fortunate Muni. The boy must have been fortunate, otherwise, how simply by standing there could he perfume Agnidra's entire ashram? Some direct poetic language to describe the attraction of male and female in this material world. Oh, best friend, will you kindly show me the place where you reside? I cannot imagine how the residents of that place have gotten such wonderful bodily features as your raised breasts, which agitate the mind and eyes of a person like me who sees them. Judging by the sweet speech and kind smiles of those residents, I think that their mouths must contain nectar. Purport. Still bewildered, Agnidra wanted to see the place from which the Brahmana boy had come, where the men had such raised breasts. Such attractive features, he thought, must be due to the severe austerities performed there. Agnidra addressed the girl as Suritama, the best friend, so that she would not refuse to take him there. Not only was Agnidra captivated by the girl's raised breasts, he was also attracted by her sweet speech. Nectar seemed to emanate from her mouth, and therefore he was increasingly surprised. Okay, that's enough for tonight of our poetic Bhagavatam recital, giving us the truth in a very palatable but direct form. You see, in a culture, in a spiritual culture, these things were taught to everyone, men and women. So then finally, when they did, get married and meet and mingle to have children, then they wouldn't get carried away. They had knowledge. And if you don't have knowledge of these things and what they are meant to do, all these potencies of the material world, then you get carried away. There's no other alternative. So this is great mercy upon us that the Bhagavatam, explains all these things in depth, graphically, in a way that most people don't hear. They just see in village and in language, in literatures that are meant to attract us together and have illicit fairs and all these things. And then what was it the Bhagavad Gita says? Happiness in the mode of passion. Seems very nice at first, like heaven, and then at the end it's poison. And it's like that for everyone. There's no exceptions. Let history tell the story. Okay, Hare Krishna. Now we'll see if our other microphone works. Pretty heavy topic. We'll see if anybody's courageous enough to make a comment.
Does it work? Hello. Hare Krishna.
Testing.
Testing.
Hello. Hello, hello. This is the way they do it. Anybody who's been in India, they laugh. Hello, hello, hello. Only they turn it up like to 15. If there's 10, they turn it up all the way. Then they break off the knob. Okay, kids, it's your turn. Okay, Pranata. We'll see if it works. We might have a defective.
Can you explain how is it that he still thinks she's a boy after even...
Because he's intoxicated. He's intoxicated, and when you get intoxicated, you hallucinate. And that's exactly what's going on here. The material world is intoxicating, and therefore everyone is hallucinating. Does it say? It works fine.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't just completely, when you first put it in, maybe it wasn't. Must have been, because you reconnected everything. That. Yeah. So therefore the Vedic literatures, they strongly advise us that you're intoxicated by material nature, so don't act in a way that you get more intoxicated, that your fever of material lust goes up. You should act in such a way that it goes down. And when we get in proximity of one another, male and female, you have to be careful, no matter who we are. That was Chanakya Pandit's, advice to us all. Be careful. Especially if you're in a secluded place with a woman or a man, then you should be careful. Because Maya is very strong, very powerful. And this is what these poetic descriptions are talking about. Just how the material nature works, how the laws of nature work, and that's the way they work. And nobody's going to change it. Nobody's more powerful than material energy. And what examples do we have in the Bhagavatam? Lord Brahma, he goes running after his daughter. Unbelievable, inconceivable. Even his nephews, sons of his. Yes, he was the sons of the sons of the mind-born sons of Mariti, the Maruts. Yeah. They couldn't believe it. You're the authority of the whole universe and you're doing this. What are people going to think? And then Brahma goes, what have I done? And then he changed his mind actually. He had complete control of his mind. But even a person with complete control of the mind, therefore I don't remember the Sanskrit, sorry, I'm not such a good remember of Sanskrit slokas, but Chanakya Pandit said, even a learned person, it sits in a secluded place with the opposite sex, they can become bewildered. That's the truth, the naked truth. And now, just see what's happening everywhere you go, You just innocently come off an airplane, and you've got all these super sensuous, lusty, huge photos, celestial looking women. Well, they don't really look celestial according to they look something else, But so who's going to resist these things unless you're very strong in Krishna consciousness and getting a taste? The whole point is for us to get a taste for hearing the truth. The Bhagavatam it's not like this all the way through, but the first 9 cantos have quite a bit of this stuff, especially from the 4th to the 9th. All kinds of stories and analogies and examples of how we have to be careful. Yeah, but he had the desire. He went there particularly for this reason, so he was already intoxicated, and he was getting his desires fulfilled, and therefore he was hallucinating. So even though he had done austerities, and sobriety gave him some clarity, it was hallucination. Meant to bring him to sorry, my fault. Now I can no longer find you. It's my fault.
Hare Krishna. So throughout the readings in the Bhagavatam...
Yes, sir.
Oh, yes, okay. Throughout the readings of the Bhagavatam, I noticed language in describing women like, slender-waisted, or describing voluptuous body parts and piercing eyes. Is that alluding to the fact that there are objectively attractive features, or is it still in like the eyes of the beholder?
Both.
Okay.
Absolutely both. Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, and if you get attracted to the opposite sex, then that person you're attracted to looks beautiful, no matter how they look from an absolute standard of all the air-blown, photos in the pictures and the TV and all the billboards and everything. They made air-blown and made to look perfect. And then I saw one little blurb. There was one very famous girl who was very beautiful. They caught her in the street or someplace without her makeup. And it was like she didn't look the same, let's put it that way. Yes, it's both. It's both. Just answering that call. Yes.
What we as being in a woman's body, sometimes I notice little things. This is weird. Like, for example, like if I had this pencil, maybe I'm just thinking too much, but like sometimes I'll
Do things that unconsciously, yeah.
And then I'm like, wait, somebody might be looking at me.
That's the modes of material nature. So you learn the art of not doing those things. Study chaste women's behavior.
Ooh.
Emulate. Well, you've got two of them right in the room. You've got two of them right in the room.
So many in the scriptures.
What?
There are so many women in the scriptures.
Yes. But she needs in front examples, and therefore I highly recommended that you take Shobha as your mentor, and she can help you in that regard, guaranteed.
But Shobha's so beautiful too, and her bells tingle on her ankles, and she's very graceful. Maybe it's a good thing I'm klutzy. It's like
Or maybe she could teach you how to be more klutzy.
Shobha has no klutziness in her bones.
Anyway, she can give good advice. The whole point is to be submissive to the truth. To be submissive in the truth. Read these books and hear them and try to emulate.
She said this doesn't work anymore.
Who does?
Rati. Oh, she said
Or maybe that's because you had it away from your mouth. Maybe. Okay, Rati, keep us honest, Rati. Anyway, it is testimony to the consciousness of devotees who are sincere, that we can sit in a room, men and women, and hear these things and chuckle. This is testimony, because it's truth. It's eternal truth, and that's the way it is. And we have to learn to live in. If we're not interested in going back to Godhead, then the material nature's got a whole arrangement to keep and give us time. What we think is a good time. But yeah. Nothing in the Bhagavatam. What did we read? Sanatana Goswami said, every syllable flows. Yes. From every syllable flows prema. These things are flowing prema because they're teaching us what it is, so that we don't let our senses go. That's the whole key. Don't just let your senses go. Remember Krishna. Remember. I mean, if you're a man, you're looking at a beautiful woman, you have to think, hey, this belongs to Krishna. Krishna created this beautiful form. It belongs to Krishna. This is for Krishna's pleasure, not for mine. And like that, if we train our minds to think like this, then we don't get overcome with lust and get swept away, like Brahma did, and Lord Shiva did when the Mohini Murti shows up. So even great personalities like that. And the same goes for men to women. It concentrates on the form of the woman because it's a fact that the woman is the most. I mentioned this before when we talked about this subject before. I don't remember when it was, a couple of months ago or something, more than a month ago. But it's just a fact of life that the female human form is attractive. It embodies all the different attractive features of the forms of the material world are all contained in the female form, and therefore it's used by persons who exploit, the senses of people to sell things and whatever, and that's the way it is. You can see it. It's clear, very clear. So hear, chant, be honest, accept that's true, that what is true, as they say, the truth will set you free. And this is part of it, what it means. And now, I am going to stop early tonight because you can hear my voice. The last 2 days it's been going, and I don't want it to be gone. It can't be gone because of my legacy service I have to. So thank you all very much for your company and for patiently hearing these absolute truths about the material existence and how to stay free from lusty desires. Hare Krishna. Okay. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. See you tomorrow at 4:30, different time tomorrow, 2 hours earlier, 4:30 Central Time, USA. Hare Krishna. Thank you.